What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. Joining me to break down yet another NASCAR race, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Man, we were way off in our predictions of this last Sunday's race. We were just talking pre-show. Chase
Yes.
Elliott absolutely dominated the field, killed your Kyle Larson versus Chase Elliott bet, and Joey Logano.
Yeah.
Of course, he doesn't perform when I need
Yeah.
him to.
Of course. You can't be on board with him. I did have Kyle Busch in a head-to-head against somebody because I remember I went with the double Kyle stack, so at least that came to fruition. But your Chase Briscoe call ended up working out really nicely. Started 35th, ended up finishing 6th. But yeah, weird race. Chase Elliott finally came home. Whatever. It's
Exactly. There were so many instances during that race where you just put your hands up and you're like, well, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Like, this guy is driving top 10. Both Alex Bowman and William Byron running near the top of the field, both wind up getting in crashes or just bad luck.
It was a
what are you going to do?
Wild race. That's the thing about betting NASCAR is, there you can always put your ducks in a row and kind of have a plan, and then they could go out and pop a tire or run into a wall or someone run into them, and all of a sudden they're out of the race or, moving their way to the back, and your day's kind of done. But or they're running great for 2.5 stages, and you look like you're a genius, and then all of a sudden at 3 laps to go, they drop 7 slots, and then you go from cashing your top 5 or your outright to not even cashing that top 10. So these are the cards. Let's talk betting first, like we always do, and let's take a look at the betting board. Kyle Larson, once again, your dramatic favorite, plus 225 to win, minus 155. We'll talk about him from a DraftKings perspective in a bit, but from a betting perspective, is Larson, like, I feel like we're going to end up with egg on our face if we say, don't bet Kyle Larson plus 225 because he's going to go out and win the race. Like, he's been dominant, and like these style tracks, he does amazing. But plus 225 when the next guy is Kyle Busch at plus 750, then you're talking 9-1. It's a weird race. There's a huge cluster of like 7 to 12, 14, and then all of a sudden it gets to Kurt Busch, and it's like 30, and it's like 35. But at the top, with Kyle Larson, like, it's either bet Kyle Larson or spread out that bet over a couple names, right?
Yeah, we saw this last week too, and we kind of downplayed Chase Elliott as being the favorite because he was kind of close to the similar odds. I think it was plus 280 or plus 290 he closed at.
Yeah.
And I mean, he wound up winning the race and he dominated it too. So, I think there's something to be said for what Kyle Larson has done here at this track and in similar type tracks. Been the most dominant driver there over the last 2 years or last 2 seasons that he's ran. So it is one of those situations where I won't be betting it, but how can you not bet for a guy who, minus a couple of bad luck instances in the last couple races, we're looking at a dude that was probably going on close to 10 consecutive races of finishing first or second. So how do you bet against him right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving life right now, holding my, I think, 12-1 ticket on his outright to win the Cup championship. He's like 2 or 3-1 at this point. I might look at some other options as kind of ways to hedge against Larson in case things don't go well. But yeah, he's a guy it's going to be hard to avoid, but he's also a guy that's I just can't bet plus 225 in a race with so many outcomes.
Yeah, it's too heavy.
You could pop a tire. Someone else could spin you out. Something could go wrong. Something out of your control, and you still don't win. Now it could come home to fruition, but because Elliott won last week, that doesn't mean we need to be running to the window to bet the big favorite this week. So if not Kyle Larson, who has the potential to earn some of your dollars this week?
This track is really interesting. I still love what Kyle Busch has been doing over the last few weeks. I mean, we saw again, he was very competitive over this last race at Road America. Chase Elliott, obviously, he doesn't have the greatest success at his home track, but he's another guy who other than Larson, who's driving better than those top three here at this track? Larson, Busch, and Chase Elliott. So I like both of them. But for me, I'm looking more in the old geezer section with Kevin Harvick is a guy who he hasn't popped yet.
Yeah, so Harvick and Truex,
yes,
by the numbers, are amazing bets this week. However, they both have not been great this year, especially of late.
Yeah, I was just going to hit on that. The fact that, so Harvick, for instance, he's been running kind of as good as you would expect somebody at the back end of their career. He's not really competing for wins, so it's hard to get on board with him. And then Truex, he's been all over the map. He's really good at this track, but he's finishing outside the top 10 pretty consistently of late. So it's hard to get on board with him. But if anybody has a shot, it's those two guys just with their familiarity here.
Yeah. Kyle Busch is one of my favorite options. Plus 750 is a solid number, especially when you consider he's the second shortest odds. The other name that really stands out to me is Ryan Blaney, and I feel like I'm going back to the well. Obviously, won the race here in March. Last June, finished fourth. Starting 15th this week, don't love that quite as much, but as we've seen, as long as they're there at the end, they have a legit chance at winning. He's a guy that runs really well at this track, runs really well at this style, and getting 12-1, I think, is a number I can definitely get on board with. The young guns down there, William Byron, Alex Bowman, I don't know if I love them at those prices.
Honestly, any of the Hendrick drivers are decent wagers. And I mean, especially if you're looking at the top 5 market, because they've easily been the fastest team and the most cohesive when it comes to the amount of drivers finishing inside the top 10 or top 5. So I like all those guys in that market, not necessarily outrights. This is probably a race I'm not betting an outright just because there are so many people who run here, and Larson's number is just too steep for me to pay.
Yeah. But that Harvick plus 130 to top 5 is interesting. Ryan Blaney plus 155 to top 5 is definitely something I can get on board with. Let's see. No Logano. Byron plus 155. That's fun. I've done this for a couple of the races this season where I just pick a couple of names, hammer that top 5 market. If I hit 2, I'm basically breaking even. If I hit 3 or 4, then I'm having a nice little Sunday. So that's another way to attack it, especially if you're like, yeah, I don't love the outrights, and I feel like Kyle Larson's going to be the winner, but I also don't want to bet plus 225. That's another way to attack the race and find some value.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to watch this, especially this is the last year that we get this track at its current setting. I mean, I don't know if anyone else saw the news, but they're going to be increasing the steepness of the corners for next season. Some people have deemed it like mini Daytona. So we're going to look at faster speeds, probably more drafting. Next year should be a lot of fun here.
Yeah, we'll have to remember that and kind of adjust our philosophy heading into next season, because that will definitely make this track, a very different experience. We'll have to throw out the numbers. If we head into like the top 10 market, is there a name or two that you think could offer some value heading into Sunday's race?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually did a little bit of the digging going into this race, and I'm going to go back to the guy's name that we finally figured out how to say it, and that's Chris Buescher. 2 of the last 3 times he's ran here, he's finished in the top 10, and his number right now is plus 280. So I think these are the kind of bets that I like making. Just finishing ahead of a 3/4 of the field, I think is totally plausible for a guy of Buescher's talent. He's done it a couple times this season already. And then the other one is Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who he has 1 top 10 in his, I think in the last 6 at this race. It was a 10th place finish, but his average finish over these 6 races has been like right around 13th or 14th. So he's consistently running near cracking the top 10, and he's the same number, plus 280. So those are 2 guys that I'll be wagering on to get some good profits out of it if they hit.
Brian, I don't know how we do this, but Chris Buescher is absolutely someone I'm looking at for this weekend. That usually ends great or ends poorly. Usually poorly, But yes,
and we did not talk about this pre-show, by the way.
No, we don't talk about anything. The only thing you tell me pre-show is who your DraftKings core is going to be. That's the only discussion we have. You send me your list with prices, and I build the graphics out, and that is it. So we come on this have this conversation. Sometimes we both go to the wall for Joey Logano, and we end up with egg on our face. Sometimes we, stand for somebody else, and they end up having a nice day. So yes, 100% on board with Chris Buescher. I love his track history. I love his style, and as we venture into our DraftKings core, you will see that he made my DraftKings core. So these things I do not make up, Brian. And yeah, you see another familiar face when we jump into yours. But Ryan Blaney, 10,500, starting 15th. For me, there was a legit quandary, and I want to see where your head's at. Because there's two guys that are right in that 10K range, and it's William Byron at 10,000 starting 19th, or Ryan Blaney starting 15th at 10.5. If you had to roster one this week, who would it be?
Quite honestly, I did kind of look at that because I love, obviously everyone knows I love myself William Byron.
Yes.
I would pay up for Ryan Blaney because he does have a longer history of success here, and he does run consistently better at this track than Byron does. So I'm banking on his successes, and he's kind of trending in the right direction right now, whereas Byron isn't necessarily competing as much. I mean, we've seen it. He got close to winning a race a couple of weeks ago, but
he
should
have won the race if he didn't run out of gas, but he also stayed out and did the risk. So and then Kyle Busch. I love me some Kyle Busch, 10-3. Feel like that's a good value. He's gonna be my dominator this week. A guy that runs really well at these cookie cutter style racetracks like Phoenix, like Vegas. I expect him to do really well. Chris Buescher, 8,600, I think is a number that I can definitely get behind. And Ryan Newman, we got to save value somewhere. I was trying to dig deep this week, looking at some guys at even sub 6K, but there was nobody really I was super on board with. Well, ideally we can chat again on Sunday, doing our pre-NASCAR race show, and then I can build an awesome DFS lineup in cash like I did 2 weeks ago. But Newman at 6,100 is a name that I could definitely get behind. I think it provides a ton of value, and where he's starting at 29th, I think he could get a top 20-ish finish, maybe 18, 19, something like that, and provide a ton of value. So 100% on board with him. Let's jump over and talk about the names. And I was going to say, Kyle Larson or nah, 12K this week. He's really expensive at the betting window, and he's really expensive over on DraftKings. Talk to me about your thoughts here.
I just saw Kyle Larson as a good opportunity because he has been the fastest car almost in every single race over the last 10 races. I think that he has the potential to jump up those 5 spots from the 6th starting spot to get a couple of placement points and be the dominator that we've seen him be able to do. And as a matter of fact, I looked over the last 2 years of races at similar style tracks at driveraverages.com. In the 45 possible races, he's only ran 32 of them, and he still has the second most laps led amongst races in these kind of tracks. So that just shows you how dominant he's been at, as you call them, the cookie cutter tracks. Going to Alex Bowman, he's just another guy. I like to pair up these Hendrick guys, and Bowman owes it to Kyle Larson to kind of help propel him into the into a potential victory. So I like Bowman to climb those from 17th inside the top 10. So I'm getting those placement points. And for 9,400, I think that's really good. Bubba Wallace, I've been on him only a few times this year. He finished, I think it was 16th here earlier this season, but in every race since his first race here in 2018, he's improved his finishing position from the previous one 5 or 6 spots. So if we're looking at that, we're looking at a potential top 10 for Bubba Wallace. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but
you're not saying it's going to happen.
Exactly. And then, like you said, Ryan Newman starting 29th, since joining Roush Fenway Racing, he's been really good here. He's averaging 13th over the 3 races. So if you're looking at a potential 10 to 15 spot differential, I'll take that every day for 6,100.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're looking in the 6K range, like your boy Stenhouse is starting 16th. I'd rather save a couple hundred, go with Bubba and see what I can do.
Yep.
Eric Jones is always somebody that I want to get to for some weird reason. And I'm trying to do my best to avoid that nonsense this time. He's just not the same guy, even though he's popped in a couple. And it's just in Chase Briscoe, as much as I want to be excited about him, the 11th place starting grid is not somewhere I want to be. So I think those are solid cores. I think I will be mixing and matching a few of our opinions. And like I said, hopefully we can do something on Sunday to break down the race prior. Let our thoughts evolve throughout the week. I guess that leaves one thing and one thing only, Brian Twining. What's your best bet for the Quaker State 400?
Well, we very briefly hit on this old fogey, but I love what Martin Truex has done here. He needs to turn his season around. He's kind of faltering by the wayside. I mean, guys are passing him left and right in terms of the playoff standings, so he needs a good finish here. I love him to top 5 at plus 130. I think Martin Truex gets his season back on tracks for Joe Gibbs Racing this weekend.
Martin Truex hitting the top 5 market. I will also be going to the top 5 market, although I mentioned I will potentially look at an outright on this guy as well. And I'm going to take Ryan Blaney, top 5, plus 155. I think it makes too much sense. I expect him to run a really good race and be in contention when the end is near, and getting plus 155 I feel like is a really nice value. Like I said, I like taking a shot on him, William Byron, maybe Joey Logano at 2-1. That's pretty solid for a top 5, and then hope to hit a couple of them. And then if things go really well, you're sitting there with a nice bankroll come post race on Sunday, and at least you hit one or two and kind of salvage your day and call it a day. But I think there's some good opportunities in the top 5 and top 10 market for sure. All right, Brian Twining, that's it. We will be back for next week's race. And make sure you subscribe, turn on the bell notifications, all that good stuff. That way, if we do go live pre-race, we're live and you can come hang out and you can ask questions, and we can help you fill out those DFS lineups. For Brian Twining, I'm Cal Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.